Immigration reform has been a big issue here in Columbia, and people say, why don't y'all pass a law to criminalize the hiring of illegals, and why don't y'all just instruct the police to pick them up and deport them? We have several problems. One is the federal law has preempted us. We're not allowed to deport. We have to call them. They won't come get them. Secondly, they've said we can't pass criminal laws or do anything to enforce even our own laws except if we do something through what we call a licensing statute. So the challenge for us was, how do we get around federal preemption, not have a lawsuit, and at the same time do something that's meaningful? Let me give you the backdrop to the problem. Our estimates are that illegal immigration in South Carolina is going to cost you, the taxpayer, around $187 million, while the budget this year is short by around $160. So it's easy to figure out, if we didn't have the illegal immigration problem, we'd probably have a balanced budget in terms of the forecast. But the question becomes, what can we do? Well, the first thing we can do is what the Senate did, and that is toughen the law. And toughen the law and make it where the police can go out and join with federal officials in looking for illegal immigrants. Secondly, we can do something about ID fraud in terms of fraudulent production of documents and things, and slap penalties on that. Now we get down to illegals being hired. If they're knowingly and intentionally hired, some of us in the Senate wanted to get real tough on them. Sadly, we were a minority. Senator Campson, myself, and others put up amendments to require employers to either follow pretty much the Arizona law and get the E-check or the South Carolina driver's license, or to create an enforcement mechanism. We created what we called a state I-9 form. And that would allow the state to go in and look at the documents, because as I told you with federal preemption, we are not allowed to look at federal I-9 documents. So all an employer's got to do, pull the documents in on the federal I-9, the state's powerless to enforce it. The only way we can enforce the federal law is if we required a similar I-9, then we could go in and look at the documents. Sadly, we were beaten by a very aggressive lobby out on the floor. They were working out in the lobby, got the people on the floor to not go along with our amendments, and those amendments were not put in the law. But the Senate bill at least was tougher than the House bill, but it didn't go far enough. And Senator Campson and I have tried to make that point to you, the voter, that we tried, but we couldn't get the votes. So we're going to continue. What else can we do? We've passed a call for a constitutional convention. Why? Because if Washington will not act, then the people need to act. And the only way they can act under the Constitution is through a convention. Keep in mind that I said federal preemption. They tied our hands. We need to untie them. So Congress either needs to solve the problem, and that's where it should be solved in Washington, or else get out of the way so that the states can act. And hopefully the Constitutional Convention will pass, other states will follow, and Congress will move. Simultaneous with this, we got to do something about making sure that our state agencies don't charge you, the taxpayer, for producing forms now on a multilingual basis when we're a state that has English as our official language. So we have passed through the Senate. I was the author of the bill. It's gone to the House of Representatives to reinforce the fact that we are an English-only state. If you come here, you're going to assimilate here, you're going to live here and be a citizen, you need to learn the language. It's wrong to ask the taxpayers to foot the bill to create multilingual things because people don't want to learn the language. Keep in mind, we're an English-speaking state. We're not out to hurt anybody, but they need to do what generations before have done, assimilate and learn the language. So that's where we are in immigration reform. We're going to do everything we can. We're not going to do something that's just unconstitutional, that the lawyers can go out and sue us and collect fees and attorney fees. We're going to do something which makes it meaningful for you. And I hope I can report more to you as the session progresses on.